Welcome to the channel, everybody. My name is Chancy Chege, and I'll be the host of the show. And today I'm joined as a special guest. Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Stephen Mabo. I'm a millennial. So, very interesting to be interviewed by this new Gen Z generation.
That's the whole point of this. Different generations are coming here to have a conversation that we believe needs to be had. Today we're going to talk about politics, basically the state of what's happening here in Kenya. So, Steve, first question is, do you think Ruto is done?
In all honesty, I think his time has come. Well, mostly because to begin with, when he was voted in, he was voted in by barely majority. It was like 50% point something. So, and given that like the people who didn't vote, me included, were actually more than the majority that he won by. So, given the current demonstrations that are going on, it's expected that, of course, in the coming elections, there are going to be so many more people who are going to be voting, me included as well, because I think we've all just about had enough of this type of governance. And it's actually very interesting because we would, for my generation especially, we have seen the both sides of it. We've seen the previous Moi generation and what it did to our parents and how it stifled the economy. And then we've also had the opportunity to see this new generation, which is the Gen Z generation. For Ruto, I think is done, especially because he's still thinking in the old type of generational kind of mentality.
And to add on to this, what do you think is the final, like the nail in the coffin? What is it for you at the point where, like, you know what, I'm done?
I think for me, the nail on the coffin on the basically the nail which sealed it for Ruto was actually the finance bill. And the reason why the finance bill is very, very important is because it touched so many aspects of our lives. It touched land, it touched pockets, it touched on women in our lives, it touched everything. So for me, once he proposed that, and it seemed like for the whole government that this is something that we actually should be doing, you know, in terms of taxing the citizens, especially in a time when people are suffering. I think that was just it for me.
Finance was really in it, but to add into that, the extra-judicial killings that they posed, because you know, he could have, for me, it's like he could have, if he just cut it from the point of the people come, the demonstrations happen, he sees clearly, enough is enough, you know, people have refused. But when he chose to continue and kill people, do all these things, for me, that was how the nail in the person at that point. If you were in his team, in his advisory, what would you advise Ruto to do?
So to begin with, I wouldn't be in his advisory teams. It's very difficult to talk to an authoritarian leader. It's very difficult to negotiate with them because, again, as I said before, his mentality is very different from ours. It's almost two generations different. So reasoning with him at this point, I think, is beyond, because as much as we've tried, you know, as Gen Z and millennials protesting and we don't want this, he just does the exact opposite. I mean, he got rid of 22 cabinet secretaries of cabinet, and then he goes and re-employs 6 of them. So why did he fire them?
Yeah.
So I think, irrespective of what you advise him, he's still going to do exactly what he wants. So me personally, I'm not sure if there's anything much I'd tell him, but I'd see the signs and I'd just make my way out.
For me, I'd say, honestly, Ruto is like the biggest national disaster we've had in some time as a country. And I think all we can do at the moment is mitigate all the damage that he can possibly do. And that's why I love the demonstrations, because it really mitigates the damage that he can do. And if I was in his advisory, honestly, I would tell him, listen to the masses and, you know, like, global.
He really doesn't want to be a one-term president, even just to begin with, but his back is against the wall. And unfortunately, like, I'm sure he's probably thinking I've been in the ICC and everything and I've survived that, and, you know, what is a Gen Z protest and everything. He'll probably do everything in his power to stay in power, which will go from bribing to the extrajudicial killings. And there's a very good saying that says, you can't reason with someone who's oppressing you. The only way you can get out of your situation is mostly through blood. So the unfortunate thing is, like, the killings won't end. But for that to be changed, there has to be something has to change.
I'd say like the one good thing for Ruto is he's making history. He's going to be the first term president in the country. And it had to be someone. So it happens to be him. So, moving on, I feel like we also, if we're talking about Ruto, we have to talk about Raila, the Obama. So what are your thoughts on Raila?
All politicians are cut from the same cloth, and Abba wasn't any different. When there were the riots, back when President Kenyatta was in power, all it took was like a handshake. And I think this is just hearsay, like a couple 100 million or billion was swapped hands and things like those. Immediately that happened, the riots ended, and so it feels like whenever there is any other political class, and by that I mean the Kenyatas, the Railas, this really powerful family, whenever it's a case of those political classes, it's only for their own means or their own gain. Let me say that. Mostly why people voted for Ruto because they thought things would be different. But the worst thing about it is he got into power and he wasn't any different. So what I'm trying to say, long story short, is I think Raila isn't any different. Like him, once he gets what he wants, he keeps bad. I mean, the other day he was like, Thomas go, and then literally now he's just talking about now. Ruto goes, then what? Then it's like, I must be dialogue. You see, so he'll turn wherever the money leans him to. Yeah, he'll turn to that side.
I agree with you. When I see Raila, for me, it's like he's the epitome of great. He's a 79-year-old. He's still clinging on to power. It's like, at what point do we actually boot these guys? A lot of leaders, political leaders, if you were to look at them, I'd say you describe them as cockroaches because they survive under any circumstances. They always find a way to get away, and that's what Raila is doing. He'll always find a way, and I think it's high time that he backs up and goes as well with Ruto. There have been extrajudicial killings that have been going across the whole country. And I wanted to talk a bit about the most recent one. And for me, there are a few things that really stood out personally. But before I give my take, I'd really like to hear what your take was on what's happened.
One thing I know about this country is, especially in the Moi era, there were the intelligence in the country was top notch. Like Moi, I think, if I'm not wrong, he learned from Israelis or something like that. But like for him, intelligence was always top notch in the country. And what people really underestimate is the DCI in Kenya. They really wanted to find someone, to find him. So, given the level of intelligence they actually do have, I find it hard to believe that you find bodies in Bari and then suddenly you find the killer within a couple days or very short time. I think, given the level of intelligence and the level and power that DCI held, they knew who killed these people before even this apparent killer was found. Like, it must have been a dump site for. I'm not entirely sure where the bodies came from or whether they came from the protests or whether it was before that or after that. But I think they must have known that there were bodies being dumped there, and I think they must have known who was doing it. But I highly doubt that it's this Collins, because that has been like the fastest investigation I've ever seen, first of all, in my life. And secondly, it just doesn't add up that you can get someone conclusively just admit to all these killings and everything.
I really agree with you. And even just to add more salt onto the fake government story that were being sold, which I genuinely don't think anyone should believe. But he came out himself, the main suspect, and said he was forced, he was beaten, which is how we know the government handles things anyway. I would be surprised if they didn't beat him and torture him just to get the story. And for me, to add to what you're saying, the reason why personally I don't believe what happened is, if you look at the area, it's a slum. Let's be honest, it is a slum. The police claimed he lived 100 meters away from the police. He killed 42 people from 2020 to 2020. No one ever had a scream. No one had anything. No one saw him actually operating, doing what they claim he was doing. 42 women is that's a lot of people. There's no way he could have gotten away with something like that, living in a slum. He's just a guy who lived in a very isolated, remote area. there are very few people. And even when the people who are there, it's like, I live here, the next person lives 5 kilometers away. Right? But such a complex thing, I just don't see how he could have gotten it for this long. One thing that I found a bit suspicious is it's too coincidental for me. Everything is going on, and at the same time, this is when, this guy happens to kill 42 people. And also, I think the DCI is a complete joke, in my opinion. I think the director of the DCI, Amin Mohammed, I think he's called, I think I can, because he can't cook stories the way he's cooking, the way they used to cook. We need new story. At least make up a story that proves that you're actually an educated man and woman, and you know what you're talking about. The police force is completely incompetent. They're the backbone of our society. And I did a bit of research, found out if I wanted to become a policeman today, how long would it take training? It takes you 9 months in our country to become a policeman. Not DCI level, but let's just say, a basic policeman. Because, the policeman will inform the DCI. Before the DCI comes, they'll go to the policeman or policewoman. What happened? So this policewoman takes 9 months for them to become a policeman. Okay, what's a qualification? You can become a policeman if you scored as low as a D- in KCSE. And it's fine. I feel like whether you scored a D- or whatever, it's okay. But the certain position that should be left very highly skilled, highly qualified people. And for the longest time, we've had the most foolish men and women going into our police force and becoming a part of our police force. I think that needs to change. We need to respect the policemen and women who are in this country. And for us to respect them, they need to respect themselves. They need to be qualified. There can't be a KCSE of a D- is a girl who you're going to meet with. It can't be you guys are being trained for 9 months. 9 months is not enough. I have a degree. It's taken me 4 years to get a degree. I'd like to believe there's a reason why it takes you 4 years to get a degree and not 9 months. And, we've talked about it a bit, but renovations. I don't know if you've seen people have been posting that Kenya is closed for renovations on Instagram. So my question to you is, what renovations would you actually like to see in Kenya? What changes? What are the key changes you'd like to see in Kenya?
Me personally, I think we need to have an independent electoral board, the IEBC. So we need that to be completely and entirely independent. So let's just start there. And the second thing that I would change is the judiciary. Unfortunately, in this country, the judiciary is married to the executive in the terms of if there's a court case or anything like that, it's really easy for people in power to get away. It's very hard to prosecute, especially graft. I think there was a politician who stole billions or something like that, and he was only fined millions. So that discrepancy, once I can separate the judiciary from the executive, for me, in my opinion, have an independent electoral board, separate the judiciary from the executive, make them completely independent and free of corruption in any of those tactics. And then lastly, I don't know if I'd work on the executive because it's just like a den of pigs, for lack of a better word. So, but once in my opinion, once you can fix the police, the judiciary, and the independent electoral board, it'll basically fix the executive, because that means that if there's any politician who's maybe caught for corruption, definitely is gonna go straight to jail. So the judiciary and the police and the electoral board, I think that would fix a lot from this country, just to begin with.
Yeah, I agree with you, man, because all of that attacks the one common enemy, which is corruption. What are your thoughts on Miguna Miguna? It's been quite, it's been active on different social media platforms. What are your thoughts on that guy?
The same cloth. They're all just politicians cut from the same cloth, man. If you bring back Miguna Miguna here and just put him in power, he'll just sing the same tune he's been singing, that Raila has been singing. I mean, they sing the same tune Ruto has been singing, the same tune like Uhuru was singing. These guys, they're like interchangeable Legos, but like really bad Legos, because you can put take one politician in one situation and the next, and they're exactly the same people. If you knew how many times these people have changed like political parties just to show you how their standing is not any standing at all, the number of times they've shifted according to what they feel is for their own benefit. I mean, it's just the same cloth. So I say there should be a certain age cut for politicians. Like if you're above this, just go and retire. For me, Miguna Miguna would come back here and it would be just the same thing and just changing literally one shitty Lego with another.
For me, when I look at Miguna Miguna, the biggest issue for me with Miguna Miguna is he's very happy to incite people to go for the demonstration, to, take over a state house, to do all these things. But when the rubber meets the road, when people are actually outside there losing their lives, why is Miguna Miguna? He's nowhere to be seen. He's in his home, protected with guards outside, covering, waiting for news so that he can very quickly become a keyboard warrior again and tweet and say all these sorts of things. But he's actually never there when things actually do go wrong. What do you think about Boniface Mwangi? Do you think his intentions are pure?
For me, I think activism has its own understanding. So since I'm not an activist, nor do I know what it takes to go to the front line, I think he genuinely has good intentions. The reason why I say that is because whether or not he's sponsored, whether or not he makes a living out of it, he goes through things for the country which I don't think any normal person would, in terms of how many times he's been incarcerated, how many times he's been arrested, how many times he's been tied to those things he's carrying, how many times he's been taken to the police, how many times he's been beaten, threatened, and things like those. I think it takes more than just a paycheck and more than just you waking up in the morning and saying I'm going to be an activist to do that day in, day out. I saw the other day that he declined a meeting with the president, I think, over 3 times, which is clever because one thing for sure, he'd have either been bribed or threatened. And there's no point of him going to do any of that. It'll also take away from any of his previous activism or anything he did to benefit the country.
You actually attended one of these events, yeah? Attended this event, the one, the Sabasaba, I think it was called.
Yeah, the one which was hosted at Uhuru Park. It's more or less a concert.
Yeah, concert.
Yeah, so it was free and it was very well organized. Lots of people turned up. I thought, because it being Uhuru Park and you know how most people know stuff about Uhuru Park, that it would be more or less not safe or anything like that. But I can say in this new generation, Gen Zs, their phones and everything, that whole place was safe, even with the police and everything. I'm not sure why the police were there, because even after the concert, people just peacefully walked out. But it was really good because they reminded this Kenyan generation that we're actually in solidarity, and that's exactly why I went there, just to fill the numbers in the stadium, so that at least we can be there for the people who have passed on, and also just to show our middle finger at the government. I don't know if he will run again for a political seat, but I think his angle for running for a political seat was to try and get in there and make a difference from inside, which is kind of hard when, the whole, the whole quote unquote cloth is rotten. When everyone is rotten from inside out, it's kind of difficult to enter such a system. But I always say this to people. I mean, you may not know what he wants, and maybe he's running for political seat. We all don't know what he deeply, inherently wants, but at the end of the day, I think if it's good enough to head us in the right direction, then that's one direction we can take. Because all these other politicians we know aren't going to help us, and we know for sure don't give a shit about the country. For them, we've voted for them time and time again, and they've disappointed us. So I say, why not? It wouldn't be like, what do we have to lose at this point? We're already at like the literal bottom of how far our country can get.
And moving on, what are your thoughts on Azziad Nasenya?
I don't have any. It's a celebrity women, man. I avoid, especially these ones they call baddies. I try and stay away from such things and such controversies. But from the little I know about her, I feel like the women in this country they're at a position where they're not empowered enough. Because if I was Azziad in her position and everything, I wouldn't fuck around with the political elite. Yes, that is a platform for her to maybe take her net worth to the next level, if you know what I mean. So it's really demeaning in my opinion, or it takes away from anything. Like if I was to say on the street, I'll just be like, but really, you're like in the same bed with the government. Like I can't take you seriously. So anything she does or whatever platform she uses to make a difference, I'm not going to take it seriously. So, but what she does with whatever platform she has is up to her at the end of the day, right? I wish the country was in a better situation where we didn't have to make, how do I say, social media celebrities with the government, because then us as a people, you become compromised. Because even if, for example, if Azziad, apparently I heard that she was part of the delegation going into Paris, like already we, with the rest of the country, should be at loggerheads, because this is the same money we're trying to account for. We're trying to have some sort of financial accountability, but you're also the same people going, spending our money going to Paris to do what, you're not an Olympian, there's nothing you're going to do there. I mean, so even if she was going to promote the Kenyan brand, I mean, there's so many other more people you can use, so many athletes. I mean, athletes have their own platforms. So I feel like, I guess, baddies, if you call them, in that kind of situation, I feel really unfortunate for them, but it would be better, at least for me, if they were empowered enough to make better decisions.
For me, when I look at her, I'd really like, as you said, pick a side. Are you a sugar baby or are you an actually hardworking woman? I don't think you can be a sugar baby and be a motivational sugar baby.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can be a sugar baby and are going to sit down and listen to you, listen to how hard you're working and what you've done. And at the moment, for me personally, it's becoming really hard for me to differentiate between guys like Azziad and guys like Huda Mandro, guys like Sarah Sidika, because like, from where I sit, the where I'm sitting at the moment, they all look like sugar babies, and there's nothing wrong with being a sugar baby. You play a critical role in our society, but you're just a motivation.
There's no critical role.
No, they play, by the way. They pay because like the old men have to spend the money somewhere.
Bro.
Like what's the point?
Then you stop stealing that money first. Then they stop stealing that money. Then when they don't have money to spend, then they won't have money to spend on these.
No, 100%. But for me, it's just like, don't be a sugar baby, and at the same time, you're trying to be a motivational sugar baby. You want to sit down and tell us, like it was cool. I think it was Trisha Khalid who was telling us, I sell shoes. I used to sell shoes in Mombasa. Like, okay. I mean, you could have, like she could have been selling shoes, but like, did you really make your money selling shoes is what I'm asking, like, and when you become such a good sugar baby that you actually think that you can make it outside sugaring is where I think like, the disconnect for me happens. Last topic for the video is, what do you think about Khalif Kairo, man?
Cloud chasing for sure. And like, let me tell you that the reason why I wouldn't even think twice about it is because when the protest started off, he seemed like he had the best intentions, and everything, and he'd rally people and stuff like that, and he'd be all there. And initially when I was following out, I'd follow him as well, and I'd be like, yeah, this guy wants to make a difference, and then some video came out of him on the front line, and he was pouring water on himself. And so I think it was a cut that we didn't see, or we didn't see initially. And it seemed like he had gone and he was sprayed with tear gas, and he came back and he said, but he's pouring water on himself, which I guess it beat the purpose of him getting tear gassed and everything. So I don't want to speak on what he was thinking or doing in that moment. It was a bit odd. But then after that, it was a very short while after, he was calling for dialogue. And he was calling for dialogue at a point when the protests had just gotten to the peak. Now, the time
Yeah.
And now he's calling for dialogue. And he said, I guess the one good thing he said is we shouldn't march on State House, because, State House is a protected zone. So when you go there, it's very likely that you getting shot won't even, that's legal. They can literally shoot all of us down and they'll be like, yeah, this is actually a protected area.
Yeah.
But Parliament is actually public. That's why it's much easier for us to go and storm there, even though they're still, shooting us and everything.
Yeah.
State House is a different story. So him saying we shouldn't go to State House, that is a good idea. But him calling for dialogue, especially with the president who's already killed people, I think that was the first biggest misstep. And then what even made it worse is he went straight from saying, oh no, let's call for dialogue, then being pressed by the Kenyan community in general. And then from that to changing altogether and saying, no, he's never going to post anything about the protest. Now it's just about cars. If you follow the sequence of events, it feels almost like he went from protesting just to get viewers to sell cars. You get, because at that point in time when people were online and a lot of people are looking at Kenyan, a lot of people are looking at, Instagram stories and things like that. So it was much easier for people to get followers. I think there's even a kid who shot a music video in between the Mandaman and everything. So people are using these platforms for their own means. For me, that was it felt like a cloud chasing thing. And he just used this platform to get more followers, in my opinion. If it was legit, he would have continued irrespective of what people tell you.
First of all, I really liked the narrative for Khalif Kairo. I think he had started car thing with his partner, then his partner messed him up. Then he went on, So there is that persistence that's there. For me, that's why I liked him.
Mm. But
then for me, even before the Mandamano thing happened, I'd already started seeing cracks personally in Khalif Kairo. He was having a competition, and the competition was basically write a poem about my girlfriend. Yeah. And the person who could write the best poem about his girlfriend won a car. And for me at first, I was like, okay, it's a bit gimmicky, it's a bit fake. But, I wasn't going to hate on the guy. But then the next thing that he did, then he faked the breakup. He faked him breaking up with his girlfriend. And for me, that's just like,
doesn't come didn't come out as real.
At that point, it was just like, this is a guy who's looking for the most memorable, dramatic moment for the internet, for just for sure. And for me, what broke my heart as a man is, I know that was his idea. He's the one who purposely pitched this idea to his girlfriend. Babe, what if we break up? We fake a breakup for views. And it's just like, at that point, I felt like that was a call. He was literally fighting with his girlfriend for her bra. So, he needed a BBL. He needs a Brazilian butt lift. As he looks for the best, the most, when he called it a social experiment, I feel like the best social experiment this guy can actually do is maybe get a BBL with breast implants, and see after the BBL, who has a bigger butt? Is it his girlfriend? Is it him? Just because for me, once you start doing certain things, I just don't think, you can recover from that. And I think for Khalif Kairo to come full circle, he should maybe start a reality TV show now, stay relevant till 2027. Then maybe he can run for woman rep or MP or something, for him to really come full circle and just call this thing as it is, I liked the Khalif Kairo that posts about cars and doesn't act tough and doesn't act hard. But when you start doing these things and you start being an influencer and you start trying to be something that we can see through the fakery, it's a bit irritating for me. And what are your final thoughts as we wrap up? What would you like to tell people as we go on?
I think the most important thing is that people should just vote. That's it. It's the last and the only thing that it would matter. Because at that point, if we vote in numbers, even if they steal, then it will be way too obvious, and everything. So voting is most important. If people go register, that'll make a very big difference. Protest where you can. If you can turn up on the street and run, show up. If you can't, you can get on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, you can follow spaces and just support. Lend your voice there. You can Instagram. You can even follow maybe if it likes Boniface and be involved, retweet, post. Those are the only things which we've seen work in this country, and they make quite a big difference in exactly the outcomes we're having right now. People always thought that social media activism is something that can't change. It's clearly proven in this country that it can change a lot of things. So I think as a parting thought, the most important thing is for people to keep pressing and this is the only thing that will make a change in this country.
Just to add on for me, listen to the right people. I feel for too long we've listened to the wrong people we shouldn't be listening to. Listen to people, and at the end of the day, you're your own individual. Make your own decisions that are best for you. You know, like when Miguna Miguna is trying to get us to go to State House, you know, it's like at the end of the day, when you're shot and killed, Miguna Miguna will be nowhere to be seen. They'll take no accountability for it. So it's just like at the end of the day, you need to do what's right by you first before you do what's right by others. And don't be influenced by Khalif Kairo. He's not an influencer at all. Yeah, I think that's a wrap from us. And stay tuned. I'll be posting another video in like 2 weeks from now. After this uploaded. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed.